As long as Judea and Samaria are treated as occupied or disputed, it is a desecration of God's name. So what is a sanctification of his name? The return of the nation of Israel to the land of Israel in its completion and totality, what he gave us in the Bible.
This is the first plan that's on the table now that has nothing to do with the Palestinian state. It's just steps in the right direction of how Israel will declare more and more sovereignty. And at the same time, the United Nations is gathering together to declare a Palestinian state. It's like the ultimate showdown.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Israel Guys, where we believe that in a world of Jew hatred and anti-Israel propaganda, you should have a direct connection to the land and people of Israel. We have a great outline that we've just sat around and been like, okay, what in the world is going on in the world? There's so much craziness, from China to North Korea to Russia to what's going on in America to what nations are raising Palestinian Arab flags over their capitals. There's so much going on in the world. We have a UN Summit that's supposed to be talking about declaring to the world the creation of a Palestinian state. All these countries around the world are throwing their vote in to say, we want that. Anti-Israel as you could be. Let's divide the biblical heartland, split it down the middle. Let's create a terrorist state. What else?
Israel's responding, saying, all right, then we're going to declare our own sovereignty.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a little bit tough, actually, because, we record at like 11 in the morning. Podcast comes out, let's say, 8 hours from now.
And we're already behind.
BB's giving a press conference today about Israel's response to the UN summit and the idea of a Palestinian state and sovereignty. So it's like,
let me give a preview. It's going to be disappointing. We're going to go in, he's giving a press conference and it's going to be something vanilla and something,
But there's also the question of this new push for 82% sovereignty, which, sounds like we need to talk about it. But
we're going to talk about everything we just mentioned, but I think this is the main thing that we're going to really boil down. And as Ari's saying here, and Luke, we're all like getting psyched up because this is the day that we've been looking forward to for how many years? Since 1967. That we've been just like
82% sovereignty.
We're like, is this what we've been looking forward to? Is this what BB's about to announce? 82% sovereignty. Who wants to be on the team that wins like 82%? Okay.
Right.
Are we all in agreement?
Like 82% pregnant, right? Because the idea is, I tend to lean to the side of principle. This whole war is about a war of principle. I try to be a stickler for truth. I don't like using the word Palestinian. Yes, it takes you outside of the Overton window if you don't use the word. But the minute you use the word, you're throwing in the white flag. And because that means there is a Palestine, there is a nation. So even if the world is using it, I'm not going to speak lies. I'm not going to say the word Palestinian. Yeah. I don't like the word West Bank. That's not what it is. The words are important, right? And so when we're talking about, what are we talking about?
Sovereignty.
So if the land actually does belong to the nation of Israel, then why would we 82% and do it strategically and pragmatically? No, do what is true, what is right, put our faith in God, don't fear man, don't fear the nations of the world. We see that whatever we fear ends up manifesting. We're so afraid the world's going to say that we're committing genocide that we go in and hundreds of our soldiers are dying unnecessarily in order to save this widely demonic population, and then they're calling us genocide anyways.
Right.
So we need to just act.
Can I give the context so people know what we're talking about here?
Please.
So like yesterday, right? Or sometime in the last couple of days, basically there's a new plan from the Yesha Council, which is the Judea and Samaria Council, and Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich, who also has some administration over the settlements in Judea and Samaria, and historically is one of the most pro-Judea and Samaria and sovereignty members of Knesset in the Israeli government.
Minister in Knesset.
They put out a new political plan, which proposes Israeli sovereignty over 82% of the territory of Judea and Samaria. We'll show the map on the screen. If you look at that map, it basically shows 5, right? Jeremy, is it 5? Yeah. Jenin, Nablus, which is right below us. Shechem, thank you. Ramallah, Jericho, and Hebron. 5 Arab cities that would remain in Arab hands, basically. Now, my understanding is that they're not advocating for a Palestinian state in those areas. They're just advocating for 82% sovereignty in Judea and Samaria right now. sovereignty in the rest of the land down the road. I don't know what your guys' understanding of that is, but that's kind of what they put forward. It remains to be seen whether like Bibi Netanyahu is going to respond to this today or in the next few days. Also, this is sort of in conjunction with the UN Summit, which supposedly is happening September 9th through 23rd. Now, that's a 2-week period, so I don't know exactly what is happening when, but sometime in the next few weeks, the UN is coming together to vote and debate the idea of a Palestinian state. Belgium has now joined the list along with France, UK, Canada. Who else?
I know Scotland just raised the flag, so I'd assume they're on the
Scotland's
list.
putting up the Palestinian flag, so I wouldn't be surprised if they joined. But yeah, there's a debate going right now: sovereignty, Palestinian state. Which one's going to happen?
So here's what I want to hear Jeremy's thoughts on what. Okay, we're obviously very Zionistic. We're Bible based in our approach, but I want to hear from you, Rabbi from Judean Hills. Are you okay with like a step-by-step approach to sovereignty?
Well, I'll tell you what I like about the approach of the 82%, meaning when they put aside Hebron, they put aside Ramallah, they put aside Jericho, it's a return a little bit to biblical times, meaning when we talk about the kingdom of Jericho, what was the kingdom of Jericho? It was a city. And so now instead of because there really is no connection at all between the Arabs of Gaza and the Arabs of Hebron and the Arabs of Hebron and the Arabs of Ramallah. They're different tribes, they're different cultures. And we've sort of like blanket them with like, oh, these are the Palestinian Arabs, even though there's really no connection between them. But in their own cities, they have like their own vibe. They have their own tribes. They have their own like culture. They have their own even language. All right. So a return to like biblical times where Dubai, the kingdom of Dubai, it's just a city. So here it's like, all right, Jericho is now 100% Arabs. There's no Jews that live within Jericho. Giving them autonomy is saying, okay, you now manage yourselves, guard yourselves, and if you have a problem, we will siege the city and end you. At least it's like a step in the right direction instead of obviously a Palestinian state in the heartland of Judea and Samaria, the heartland of Israel. That would be a disaster. So it's definitely a step in the right direction.
I think it's an evasion of responsibility. Ultimately, on the spiritual perspective, we are here to finally take responsibility. When you go back to the Garden of Eden, we weren't thrown out of the garden when we ate from the tree. We were only thrown out when Adam said, it was her, and he didn't take responsibility.
Yeah.
Saul lost his kingship. When he didn't take responsibility, he said it was about the men. When King David said, Chatati, I sinned. When Judah took responsibility, that is our mission as the nation of Israel. And so we need to take responsibility for the entire land. And so why are we doing only 82%? Because we don't know what to do with those 18% that are, it's these massive Arab cities. So if we declare sovereignty over them, do they get citizenship? Don't they get citizenship? Are we constrained by the constraints of the West, who says, well, it would be apartheid, which, by the way, isn't true. When you look, there's Puerto Rico, Guam, Northern Maria, there's the American Samoa. They were all, by America, the West, the paradigm of the West, they were annexed. And it took sometimes 20, 40, 50 years before citizenship was even offered. Right. And then once they did get citizenship, they don't get to vote in Congress. They don't get to vote for the president. Is that apartheid? No, it's a different structure. But we need to understand that we're here to take responsibility and sovereignty over the land. It's a desecration of God's name, that within the land of Israel, that he conquered through us in great miracles, that we don't have the character, integrity, and fidelity to his word. Go ahead. What?
Yeah, I just want to challenge that. I don't know why we're even bringing up Puerto Rico and America, because the Torah kind of gave us the blueprint. It's like, follow these rules, follow these guidelines, follow these principles, and you'll be blessed in the land. And so why don't we actually apply the Torah law to the people in the land of Israel, where there's a ger toshav, and there's the Jews and the people that live in the land, and actually apply that in the land, the ancient wisdom of the Torah in modern times, and you'll see, just like every other country in the Middle East, it's the only way to prosper.
Right. Well, that's where I'm going. When you talk about Puerto Rico or Guam, I'm trying to set a political Western precedent for what we actually need to implement as Jews in the nation. In the book of Numbers, there shall be one law for you and for the stranger who sojourns with you. Right? There is a ger toshav. There are these elements, but they need to be able to prove that they are loyal to the Jewish state of Israel, that they're not looking to establish a foreign terrorist jihadist country to undermine and destroy and murder Jews. They need to be able to establish their loyalty to the state of Israel. It's a journey. It's a process for which, and if they want to establish the jihad, out. Throw them all out. All of them.
Well, I want to tell
Everyone
you,
that wants to just murder Jews and celebrate the murder of babies in their cribs, throw them in. What will the world say? Who cares?
a study that just came out now said that the Arabs in Judea and Samaria, exactly these towns, Jenin, Shechem, Ramallah, Jericho, and Hebron, 85% of them do not want the Hamas to disarm, and they don't want the war to end. 85%, that's like 9 out of 10 of the Arabs that are in Judea and Samaria that were saying, oh, we don't really know what to do with them. They are supporters of the Hamas. What do we do with that? So I really feel like Israel is just in a quagmire. They don't know what, adopt them into Israel, kick them out. I think that step is saying, all right, let's keep these big enclaves separate right now and then judge them accordingly, because there was a movement within the Arabs of Hebron saying, we want to join the Abraham Accords.
So Josh,
Go ahead.
You were asking for volunteers to play the liberal in this debate. So,
You go for it.
I'm the obvious choice here. So, well, actually, first, I just want to read the bullet points from what they call the Smotrich plan, just to
set the tone.
So he says, no Palestinian state. The Knesset has already rejected it overwhelmingly, which is true. The Knesset voted, I think, last year, no to a Palestinian state, overwhelmingly. Full Israeli sovereignty in Judea and Samaria, not just settlement blocks. Security imperative, no Gaza times 20, overlooking Israel's heartland. Historical and biblical rights affirmed. Judea and Samaria are the inheritance of our forefathers, backed by a supportive U.S. administration, the Knesset, and the people. And then Israel Gantz, who is the head of the Yesha Council and head of the Binyamin Regional Council, which is like the largest area in Judea and Samaria, says, quote, the time for sovereignty has come. The time for decision has come. So there's kind of a debate. There's also a debate in addition to this about why didn't the settlement movement accept the deal of the century, the Trump peace plan back in 2020, right? Which I want to say there's a huge difference between that plan and this plan. The deal of the century called for a Palestinian state very clearly. It called for the Jewish communities to be enclaves, like literally a couple hundred meters from where we're sitting would be the borders of a Palestinian state.
Our farm would have been a peninsula, literally a peninsula,
exactly, yeah.
surrounded by jihadists.
No way in and out, hardly.
The Ardugo farm would have been Enclave 8.
Right. Millions of Christians visit Israel every year, but hardly any of them come to the heartland of Israel, Judea and Samaria. Unfortunately, they're missing out on the place where a lot of the Bible was either written or took place. You can't go anywhere in Israel's biblical heartland and not be in the middle of a biblical site. Most tours to Israel, however, ignore this incredible region because they think it's the occupied West Bank. Our Heartland Experience trip is the only Israel trip that focuses exclusively on Israel's biblical heartland, Judea, Jerusalem, and Samaria. Our next trip is November 17th through 25th, 2025, and registration is filling up fast. Even though this is a tour, we also incorporate volunteer experiences so that you can get your hands dirty while serving the land and people of Israel. We find that most people get much more out of their trip when they have an opportunity to serve. The Heartland Experience is not only the perfect way to experience Israel, it's the perfect way to experience the land and people that call Judea and Samaria, Israel's biblical heartland, home. We've gotten incredible reviews from our previous Heartland Experience trips, and we'd love to have you join us on the mountains of Israel. If you love God, you love Israel, and you want an unforgettable experience, consider joining us for our Heartland Experience program, November 17th through 25th. Sign up today at serveisrael.com/volunteer or click the link in the description below. Now, back to the podcast. So, I mean, this plan says unequivocally no Palestinian state. This plan says 82% sovereignty, 5 Arab towns to remain in Arab hands now, full sovereignty at some point down the road. Now, I don't know if it's the best plan or not, but I guess if we were to wake up tomorrow and all of this area had full Israeli sovereignty applied, it would be a very good situation. That's my perspective.
Let's say it like this. This is really a complete opposite end result plan. The end results
opposite from the Trump plan. Deal of the century.
Deal of the century was a stepping path, just like the Oslo Accords was, to creating a Palestinian state. The borders were argued about in both of those plans, but the end goal was we already have a Jewish state. The end goal of Trump's plan was to create a Palestinian state with its borders.
Correct, yeah.
And yes, there was going to be some Jewish lands out here in Judea and Samaria, and there was going to be, and the argument was over the borders. The argument was not about whether there would be a terrorist state in the heart of Israel or not. That wasn't the question. That was in the international world, that's already been decided. They want to have an Arab state here. This plan, which makes it a little bit different. The enclaves are not Jewish. The enclaves are Arab. It flips this whole plan around. It's not a contiguous Arab state being built, which was the whole Trump plan, was to try to connect these things and build a highway from South Judea down to Gaza and connect the whole thing into one, manageable thing. As Jeremy, you said, they're not one group of people to start with. That's an idiotic plan to start because it does not work. This is not one people group we're dealing with.
Hand in hand that somebody should explain why, like, having 5 Arab enclaves is not a...
Can I tell you?
I don't know, apartheid, discriminatory. Like, and I think you started with it. You guys were talking about. I think it all comes down to it's a Jewish nation, and the place for foreigners. I mean, we're foreigners, so I mean, I think we could say it is the Ger Toshav, the stranger who dwells within your land, right?
That's supportive. That's not your enemy.
Correct.
Here's my big question. Okay, so what is the difference in between these Arab enclaves, so-called? I don't even like the word enclave because it has this like cage-like thing. Well, fine. If there's terrorists, they probably need a cage-like thing around them. And if there's 85% that want to kill you, we should probably treat that as it really is. What makes this 85% in a conservative number of your enemies that dwell in these cities, creating 5 of these towns full of jihadists? What makes this not creating? It's not going to be Hebron.
5 mini Gazas.
Exactly.
Rocket launching
What
sites.
makes this not 5 mini Gazas? And I think, Ari, your approach may be slightly different than Jeremy's. But I want to hear like the hardcore.
But you could also say that those places are already like that too.
Well, they 100% are. They just were shooting a rocket last week.
The IDF has been steamrolling Jenin for a number of months now because of that.
No, they were trying to shoot rockets at Jenin. You saw that makeshift rocket they were trying to shoot out?
From 48 to 67,
yeah,
we didn't have Judea and Samaria. Then, through a miraculous war that they don't even study in West Point, because there they say you study wars and not miracles, in the 67 war, we got Judea and Samaria. God does work in phases. He rolls things out, right? So in some ways, I serve as a positive force by saying what I'm saying, because it makes people like Bezalel Smotrich look like moderates, right? And so that it sort of just shifts the entire spectrum. But I think the idea is when you're battling a cancer, it's good to isolate, right, and shrink the tumors that are growing. And you can say, are you calling human beings a cancer? Yes! If they want to murder
bad human beings,
if they're demonically obsessed, pathologically, psychotically focused with their entire essence on slaughtering you at any cost, then yes, that's exactly what it is. So in my mind, there needs to be some sort of opportunity, because they say that certain dogs, like if his owner is on the ground and the guy's beating him up, now he's with the guy on top. I know that the Druze sometimes are loyal to whoever's winning. We have to, a lot of the Arabs see who's the stronger party, who's winning, and they go with that. So I think when Israel is being strong, we now give the Arabs in the land an opportunity to be Ger Toshav, an opportunity to be loyal. Most of them would say to live as a Ger Toshav within the land of Israel. Of course I'm going to do that. Right? What am I going to go to? Egypt, Syria, Lebanon? Of course I'm going to stay here. So we have to give them that opportunity. And if not, throw them out. So it could be a phased journey.
Well, the United Arab Emirates just declared if Israel declares sovereignty, they're breaking off the Abraham Accords. And I feel like that's really interesting if there's looking for who's strong. So the question is, why are they doing that? Are they doing that in order to kind of just pay lip service to the Arab world to show that they're not really with the Jews? Or is it really a test? Is it saying like, how much power do we have over the Jews? What will our words say? Are the Jews really strong? Can they really do this even if we're against it? And maybe they would respect us. But like, it's definitely shifting things in the region. But the way Josh pointed out, I think at least now we're headed in the right direction. Before, everything was about creating a Palestinian state. The Oslo Accords were about creating a Palestinian state. The Trump plan was about creating a Palestinian state. This is the first plan that's on the table now that has nothing to do with a Palestinian state. It's just steps in the right direction of how Israel will declare more and more sovereignty. And at the same time, the United Nations is gathering together to declare a Palestinian state. It's like the ultimate showdown.
Yeah,
and not only that, it takes us one step further to North Korea, China, Russia, India, 20 different kings from different nations around the world coming together and converging. And why is this so dangerous? Because part of this axis is Iran.
Right.
So now we have even India in the same axis as China, Russia, and Iran. Iran, the head of the global jihad, who is also funding Pakistan, that is murdering Indians in their weddings in Kashmir, right? In New Delhi. So it's totally, it's hard to disconnect the United Arab Emirates, seeing what's happening where Israel is being isolated in such an extreme way, and seeing where the balance of power is landing and saying we're going to side against Israel. That's why Israel needs to be particularly strong right now.
There's a debate on, well, you were just talking about what do we call this new axis? And I was like, well, World War II, the bad guys were the axis, right? Question today is there going to be the axis in the Allies and Israel? Is Israel like the third group? Or, how long is America and other countries going to continue to
Before we get
stay
into
with
that
Israel?
point, I think that this is a really big deal because democracy is falling. Is that true? Democracy seems to be falling.
Democracy is being used against itself.
That's the problem. And it's on a time, like the time clock has shifted now, and that sand's about to run out, because what's happening is that very freedom that we all held dear for hundreds of years through Europe and America and all these free world countries, this new axis is challenging that. And not only this axis, this other axis, this Arab axis that's joining this very deep, like they were in China. We'll talk about this in a minute. They were there together to celebrate a new world power forming, that the America first is really kind of opening this possibility where everybody's saying, well, if you're America first, we have other opportunities. Fine, be America first. We're going to have a global power that's doing this. What happens in America when the internal that these other axes is funding and fueling is falling apart within itself, with the jihad growing, where we can't even have an Israel summit, an Israel rally in America anymore.
In Texas.
In Texas, for goodness sakes. We're at a really, the world is changing, and America and the freedoms that we have are now being used against us by law. We don't have a win in this scenario. I don't know.
To me, it seems like the world is flipped upside down, and to even try to play the game of political alliances won't work. And what we need to do is to see what's true, to see what's good, to see what's evil, go back to basics. And, just again, I haven't heard of one Arab in Gaza or one Arab in Judea and Samaria that's ever expressed regret, apologized, condemned kidnapping and murdering babies. I just haven't heard that. I mean, the massacre of children, I haven't heard any remorse. No one's apologized, not one. And so what are we even talking about declaring a Palestinian state? And what is this ultimate showdown? The nations are saying they have power. They can declare, they can create realities, but God has promised the land of Israel to the people of Israel. And so it's this ultimate showdown now. Who is in charge? The United Nations? Are they a new world order? Is the new world order China, Russia, Iran, the nations that are aligning with them?
And New York.
And so
can we add New York to this axis? Like literally New York's about to be another most likely Arab run state.
I can't help but to think of Psalm 2. The kings of the earth are taking counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed. Right? That's what's happening right now. This meeting in China is the kings of the earth all coming together, allying themselves with Iran, who is seeking to destroy. And it's like, they know who's evil here and they know who's good, but they're saying it doesn't matter. Evil and good doesn't matter. It's all about strength. It's all about survival of the fittest. It's very much similar to the Tower of Babel. The whole world comes together and it seems like it's a good thing. Wow, there's a unity happening. But when it's for evil, that is when the tower has to come down.
So what I'm thinking is that there's really it again, the biblical narrative is that there is Israel and there's the nations. Will nations stand with Israel or will they not is going to be a big differentiating factor. And I don't see very many nations that are lining up to actually stand with Israel, is what, if we were to talk about a little prophecy, Zechariah paints this picture out very vividly, that no one will, is America and its power.
How long can they hold out?
Welding that world power. How long can they hold on to it when it's falling apart from within and our democracy is being used against us?
Even if America continues to veto resolutions or abstain, just the fact that they are the host country for the United Nations, like, is there a level of complicity there?
Well, and will that move?
Well, you look at
I think it will
will.
change. Yeah. I mean, very soon.
Yeah, you look at American politics, it kind of goes back and forth eventually. There's sometimes Republicans, sometimes Democrats, and the pendulum swings. And so we have a couple more years now with an America that's saying no to a Palestinian state. Imagine if the other side of the aisle was involved.
They'd be putting it in
They
right
would
now.
be hanging out in China and celebrating.
They would totally be there.
So according to Axios, two Israeli officials claim U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has signaled in private meetings that he does not oppose West Bank, Judea and Samaria annexations, and the Trump administration won't stand in the way. Also, according to a U.S. State Department deputy spokesman, they said Washington is strongly opposed to, quote, any unilateral recognition of a Palestinian state. And Rubio reportedly told the French foreign minister that France recognizing a Palestinian state would, quote, reward Hamas for October 7th and hinder efforts to bring all hostages home. At the moment, the U.S. is standing strongly. The only thing that you always hear in these statements is unilateral, that word there, because they always want to leave that little space for, well, in the future, we're open to a Palestinian state. At some point, we're open to a Palestinian state when the time is right and when we have the right partners and when Hamas disarms or when we can get a moderate in power in the Palestinian Authority. That's the only thing that bothers me, is that there's always that little thing in there, like, at some point, we're still, we want to think about a Palestinian state.
How long does it take? There's been since 1964. The world has seen this party operating. And I talk about Axis. This has been a proxy force of the entire Arab world and anti-Israel world, has funded in the tune of billions of dollars this proxy force called, named, not historically correct, Palestinian, like you just talked about. This is their proxy force, their army that's fighting Israel from all these nations around. Have we not learned what these people are? Did October 7th not tell the world what this proxy force was capable of and who they really are in their hearts? And does the fact that 85% of them on the polls not tell the world something? Tells me that the world is actually okay with that.
Well, not only are they okay with that, I think the world backing them. Meaning, when you think about, right, the UN is coming together now to say Israel has to give in the aid to Gaza. There's some sort of resolution that's happening, some sort of gathering that's happening.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the studies are coming out saying that almost 90% of the UN aid that's being delivered into Gaza is being stolen, looted by thugs, given to Hamas, that Hamas are profiting. And so when you really want to know what the intentions of someone's are, then you have to look at the outcome. And if they know that 90% of their aid is being handed over and abused by the Hamas, then their intentions are to give over the aid to Hamas. So it's not like a shock. They're like, what? They're trying to declare a Palestinian state? They are against Israel. Period. And so we have to wake up to that reality that, as the prophets told, the nations are going to come against Israel, and it's happening before our eyes.
It is kind of ludicrous that the UN Security Council is trying to vote in a resolution for Israel to lift all aid restrictions immediately when the UN has pallets and pallets and I don't know how many tons or hundreds of millions of pounds of food just sitting, rotting inside Gaza because they can't actually get it into Gaza to the right people. And like you're saying, almost 90% of anything they have sent in has been looted. And you have other organizations like GHF, the Humanitarian Foundation, who has proved that they can give over over 1 million meals a day. They've given 150 million meals
But the world thinks they're
to
awful.
the people, to the actual people, without any of it being looted at all.
I heard an Israeli soldier on the Israeli news just 2 nights ago, and he had tears in his eyes, saying any other country would send their soldiers into war. They would want their enemies to be thirsty and hungry. And then you have a chance of defeating them. But we are literally supporting and feeding and strengthening the enemies that we're going up against. And the world is coming against us saying, yes, exactly. So we have to realize it's not that the UN is sort of a partial organization. The UN works for the agenda of the Hamas, and the Hamas works for the agenda of the UN. That's it.
I don't know if you saw this video that was just released, but it's the father of 2 sons, right? That there was a grenade thrown in the room with he and his sons, and he jumped on the grenade.
I saw that.
His body was blown to bits, splat all over his little boys. And then the terrorists came in, pulled out the little boys, threw them down on the ground. And the little boys had to watch as the terrorists were raiding their fridge and drinking Coke. And this is the level of depravity that we're dealing with. All that's missing here is for the nation of Israel to have true righteous indignation, take leadership for the entire world. England is on the verge of going up in smoke, of being ripped apart. All of Europe has the jihad taking it over. The world is looking to us for leadership. And we just need to take it. We just need to finally have someone rise to the occasion and not wait for Marco Rubio or Donald Trump to give their thumbs up, just to do it.
So,
Go ahead.
Well, we historically for the last couple of months, we've given up on talking about any of these peace deals with Hamas. But I want to mention this one just because it's not funny, but Trump had a great response to Hamas, and I want to read that. But we have to talk about Hamas is trying to they're not trying, they're pretending to try. To reach another comprehensive deal. This one includes all of Israel's hostages being released in exchange for terrorists being released, a complete end to the war in Gaza, full withdrawal of the IDF from the Gaza Strip, opening of all the crossings for aid and such. So Trump responded on Truth Social yesterday, and he said he called for Hamas to, quote, immediately give back all 20 hostages, not 2 or 5 or 7. Which is really that is key right there. And he says if Hamas does this, then, quote, things will change rapidly and it will end. So I think it's great that you actually have an American president who's saying, no, don't do a deal where you get back 5 hostages or 10 hostages. The only option is to give back every single hostage who's still alive in Gaza at the moment right now. That's the only option for ending the war in Trump's mind, which is the opportunity for Israel to now do something.
Right. Meanwhile, we have people in this country like Rabbi Leo Dee, who you just quoted. I'm going to let you do this.
Yeah,
I was just personally at his wedding.
You want to just tell the story of who he is and what happened to him 2.5 years ago.
So Rabbi Leo Dee was on the way up north with his wife and his 5 children, and they divided up among 2 cars. And his wife and 2 of his daughters were ambushed by. They slammed into their car, these jihadist terrorists, and then shot the wife and the 2 daughters point blank in the head. CNN, of course, called it a shootout.
Yeah,
And they apologized for it, but none of that even matters. Anyways, we were all at the funerals.
Yeah.
Devastation, heartbreak, just beyond. And Rabbi Dee is a great leader of Israel.
Yeah.
He's really emerged as a source of tremendous light and inspiration, at least just for me. I merited to be at the wedding this past week. And you were just saying.
Well, so 2.5 years after, this awful terrorist attack, he got married last week. But that morning he went up on the Temple Mount and he prayed with his tefillin, his phylacteries on, and obviously got arrested and hauled off on the day of his wedding. And in light of that,
not really obviously, because this has been happening. There's been prayers. I think that they saw who he was.
But I think putting tefillin on was that, nobody else has done that yet, right?
It was the tefillin. Okay.
I don't know. I know when our group went up a couple weeks ago, they said for the first time ever, the police did not forbid them from praying.
They said don't dance.
They said don't dance or sing. But first time ever, they didn't say a word about praying, which was really cool. Which is
quite a ways from when Jeremy and I went up, and I started just saying the prayer for the dead from this family that was just murdered, and they didn't restrain my arms or my legs. They just put their dank, sweaty hands over my mouth. So God forbid words of prayer shouldn't emerge from my mouth on the Temple Mount.
How absurd.
I'm telling you.
It's so absurd that Jews can't pray. Christians can't pray at our holiest site. And now we can
That's under our control.
But don't dance. Don't look too happy.
There's always something.
Don't put on tefillin. Maybe you can it's just
it's like that word unilateral,
Well,
there's always something that you can't do.
Well, what is victory? Victory is all about the Temple Mount. As long as the Jews do not have freedom to make a house of prayer for all nations and give all nations the opportunity to pray to God, this war will never end.
But the Temple Mount is a great example of what we're really dealing with here. Israel conquered the Temple Mount. Then Begin gave the keys to the Waqf. Meaning that if we
Which is
wanted,
Jordan, by the
only
way.
difference between us and building the temple is right here. It's in our own heads. There's
And
no
that's
external power, external force, external country. We could throw out the walk, just goodbye.
And
Goodbye.
that's this quote by Rabbi Leo Dee after he's kicked off for praying on the Temple Mount, and his wedding, is only a few hours away from his wedding. He said, quote, "When we fail to free our holiest hostage, the Temple Mount, God prevents us from freeing our flesh and blood hostages. So yes, I climbed up to Temple Mount with a dream that it would soon be ours once more."
That's incredible.
I think that in every war, there are prisoners of war and they're hostages. That's just what happens. But I've never heard of a war where that becomes the main focus of the war, is to free the hostages. Usually the focus of a war is to win the war. And what Rabbi Leo Dee is pointing out here is that the war will only end when we actually free the real hostage, because we're against a spiritual enemy, and this is obviously a spiritual war. And our spiritual enemy is looking at the Jewish people saying, their holiest site, they still can't dance, they still can't pray, then they're not the ones that are meant to be here. And they're not going to stop until we be who we were created to be.
Which is one really incredible note. These 5 cities, Jerusalem's not one of them. Am I correct?
Obviously. Obviously.
But the whole world is opposed to that. The fact that it's not there, I saw this news headline that was talking about it. It said it misses lots of the big Arab towns. East Jerusalem was one of the biggest strongholds of the Arab hold that there is.
Right.
There's hundreds of thousands of jihadi Arabs running around Jerusalem every single day. The fact that it's just not there, and another thing that's not there is Gaza. I don't know if you guys noticed that. It says Gush Katif on the map. I don't know if this is the official map that BB is going to be looking at, but when we're talking about sovereignty, that is, and I'm still having a hard time with I want to be there. I want to have the full picture, but I do believe, and I do trust Bezalel Smotrich that he knows more than what we know around this table. And I do trust that these people that are forming these plans in the Israeli government have Israel's best interest in a biblical mindset. That's why I think that we are moving in a right direction here.
As long as Judea and Samaria are treated as occupied or disputed, it is a desecration of God's name. The prophet Ezekiel says, "But when they came to the nations, wherever they went, they profaned my holy name. When they said of them, 'These are the people of the Lord,' and yet they had to leave his land," meaning the exile, the diaspora, is a desecration of God's name. And so what is a sanctification of his name? The return of the nation of Israel to the land of Israel in its completion and totality, what he gave us in the Bible. So the more Jews that are returning to the land of Israel, the more of the land of Israel that has Jewish sovereignty in it, it is bringing a light to the world. It is strengthening the forces of light and goodness. This isn't just an abstract political subject. It's not an issue. This is the issue that is underlying everything that's happening in the world, is Judea and Samaria and the land of Israel.
Well, if we also defined victory in the war based on the prophet, then the only victory is when we actually reclaim the land of Israel. As long as we're still sort of like fighting, retreating, just victory is when we win land. Victory is when Israel expands its borders back to where Israel was. And so the fact that that map says Gush Katif and doesn't say Gaza as a separate entity, it's just reclaiming what was already ours. And there are anti-Semites, and I'm sure the UN is kind of motivated by this, saying that October 7th was created by Israel in order that we would be able to take back Gaza, where in 2005, Israel lived in Gaza. We had flourishing Jewish communities already there. It's such an obvious lie. So what we need to do now is just to restore order, reclaim what is already ours, and that will actually be the first time Israel has won a war since 1967.
Right.
Since 1967, we haven't won any war because we never actually declared sovereignty. We never actually reclaimed our borders. And so right now, we're being forced to, in some ways, win the war. And that will obviously bring law and order to wherever we declare sovereignty.
And there's even a question whether 1967 was fully won. We won the war, but didn't follow up, right? Because we're sitting in territory here now that the world is still discussing. Did Israel win or did they not?
Right.
Is it an occupation or is it Israeli state land? And the
Does
fact
the Israeli government support Jewish settlement here? That's been the age-old debate.
The
Right.
last time I spoke to Ambassador Huckabee, I said, I have a land for peace plan. And he's like, really? Because he was out in the Arugod farm. And I was like, what needs to happen is the Arabs need to give us the land, give the Jewish people back the Jewish homeland, and we will bring law and order and peace and prosperity. That's the only way to bring peace to this region. I said, if you could pass that on to President Trump, I'd really appreciate it.
I bet he did, actually. I think he's aligned with this. I mean, we can't put words in his own mouth, but he's a biblically minded guy.
He just spent the Sabbath in Shirat David synagogue
right, in Efrat.
In the Jewish village settlement of Efrat. He spent the Sabbath there and prayed with them there. It was a beautiful thing.
I think he said he wanted to buy a house in Efrat at one point, didn't he?
Oh, did he?
I think that was rumor. I never heard actual. I think that would be the best thing. You heard it? Yeah. Well, I hope so. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to move on to new topics if you had something else. But did we finish with the whole, what are we calling the axis that's going on over there in the far east?
Well, I think we talked about it, but I think that there's this is majorly concerning. This just happened a few days ago. This changes everything. And for me, because now, before we'd always talk about, okay, there's this thing, and we would throw Russia out there, we'd throw South Korea or North Korea out there, we'd throw China, and we would say, Iran. Well, this Iran and this Turkey thing, and this but what's actually going? Well, they actually met now, and I'm sure there's been some little meetings, but this was unreal.
And China unveiled, I think, 11 new weapons that have never been seen before by the world, or something like that. Like
in a mass parade.
Massive show
that America
of force.
has zero defense for.
It's a massive show of force for China with their entire axis involved.
This was yesterday. So what I'm saying is that you have these countries aligning, and it was quoted why they were aligning. They're aligning because of the, what do we say? The embarrassment of World War II. America has held the world and its superpower role in a Western ideology these countries don't like. They don't appreciate it. And so there's been this unbridled, like they could not push back. And now they're saying, we're powerful now, and we're going to start pushing back. And to me, we've had 80 years of this Western freedoms that really we hold dear and think maybe, it obviously seems to pay off. There's been a lot of peace, and we've grown, and there's been a lot of great things that happen, but there's also this new winds of turmoil that are rolling that, as God only knows, kingdoms rise and fall. And are we at a critical shift here? And I looked up, I said, did they talk about Israel at this thing? To me, it's kind of the underlying topic that is dividing the forces.
Yes.
It's the
Israel
underlying
is the
thing.
line.
It's the line. And this is what they're all, why are they connecting? What's Turkey and Iran have to do with China? What do they have to do with North Korea? What unites them? It's when North Korea says Israel is like a cancer. They said all kind of quotes like this from these countries. I mean, Russia's got all kind of terrible things to say. Turkey, terrible things to say about Israel. China's been a little bit quiet because they're maneuvering. They're trying to be the big dog. And so I think that when it relates to Israel, sovereignty, the whole world is looking at Israel, and they're going to be looking at this new axis as it's forming now, legitimately forming, and China's at the lead.
We might just start live streaming this podcast, because you could say that the world axis of evil came together in the Far East yesterday. Today, Israel's talking about sovereignty, and you got Bibi maybe saying something about sovereignty later today. And then tomorrow, maybe next week, but let's say tomorrow, the UN's all coming together, and a whole bunch of nations of the world coming together to decide that there should be a Palestinian state. So it's just wild. Like, I think you guys our audience could get in the comments and start predicting how many nations are going to join the vote for a Palestinian state. How many nations are going to join this axis over here in the East? Who's going to stand with Israel if Israel decides to declare sovereignty?
Can I predict
Who's
something?
going to drop off from the Abraham Accords?
Can I predict? I predict that, and this is no prophecy, this is just my reading.
No, there's like 100,000 people that are going to hold you to it. So
yeah, I'm ready for it. I'm ready. I predict that this call that's happening in a few weeks, a call for a Palestinian state led by the UN, led by external forces around the world, is not only being used against Israel, it's going to be used against America. And it's going to be used as a Black Lives Matter kind of a tangible rallying call to start that kind of thing in America. I think that that's what America has coming for it in a few weeks.
Well, what I see right now happening in Europe and in America is that as people are waving Palestinian flags, they're attacking Americans. They're burning down churches. Whatever starts with the Jews will spread to all believers in God and all believers in freedom. It's a war against the civilization that the Bible built.
Can I just make a point really quickly though? Something you said, just the IDF shoots and targets a church in Gaza because there's terrorists shooting IDF soldiers right? From it. Schools, name it, churches, whatever. In America, those same Gaza supporting people can burn down churches and no accountability whatsoever for no reason except for only attacking the freedom of speech in America. What in the world is going on? See what I'm saying?
That's crazy.
It's an opposite. It's exactly opposite. I don't even, you can't, what do we even say about this when it's the people are fighting the wrong thing? The people that are trying to fight for freedom, fighting the enemies of truth and godliness in the world are being targeted because these people have taken over these churches and they're having to, Gaza, as soon as an IDF soldier has to, there's a mortar that falls in the church, they're all like, how do we deal with this? Hamas was there, we were attacking the Hamas, but this looks bad in the international media. Meanwhile, these people are burning down churches in America, like you just said. And nobody says
Tucker
anything.
Carlson doesn't say a word about that.
Nobody says anything about it.
Bethlehem used to be 80% Christian and 20% Muslim. After the Oslo Accords, it became 20% Christian.
It's now 10%.
It was 20. It's going down constantly because the Christians are fleeing to countries around the world because of the jihad, slaughtering that. Anyways, now it's at 10%.
Right.
And Tucker Carlson is talking about the occupation, but I always like listening. What is this really about? What is Candace Owens saying? What is Tucker Carlson saying? When you just keep listening to them, it goes down to, he mentioned Israel, I don't remember the number, 469 times. He's like, I'm not pathologically obsessed with Israel, but they did a count of how he's totally consumed and pathologically obsessed with Israel. Why is it? Because at the very core, go ahead.
No, finish your thought.
At the very core, it's about God. And when he's saying Israel, this is a modern secular state of Israel. This isn't the nation of Israel. These aren't the people of Israel. Even though all of these unbelievable miracles and these wars that were outnumbered thousands to one and the ingathering of the exiles are happening to us. No, Tucker Carlson is not going to believe it. They are not the ancient people of Israel. They're a secular state, but he doesn't know what's really happening under. That for the first time, religious first graders in Israel outnumbered secular ones by thousands. There is a return. There is an awakening happening.
Yeah.
Right. Like the prophet Ezekiel said, I will bring you back from land, the dry bones coming together. In the last phase, I will breathe the spirit of God within you. And that is what is happening right now. We are returning to God in droves. And by the way, we were never really lost. It was always there. It's just, it was a spark that is being fanned and turning into an inferno of light that will illuminate the entire world.
I just had this conversation with this Jewish guy yesterday. And because we did a project right on the outskirts of Bethlehem. We were doing a beautification project and helping to restore some broken down, terrible situation along the highway of the patriarchs. It's an amazing reality that's happening there. But I wanted to paint this picture. We were restoring this desolate ancient ruins, right? We're joining along with the municipality there of creating and beautifying the place. I'm looking into Bethlehem. What do you see there today? You talked about it, only 10% Christian. The radical Islamist, do you know what the Jews have to do just to drive through that corridor there? It's completely there's barriers over because the hostilities and anti-Israel jihadists that have taken over Bethlehem are so fierce that in order for Jews to drive past the town, not go into town, God forbid, I was almost kidnapped in Bethlehem myself years ago. You can only drive through a corridor that is completely bare, those massive barriers going over the road there to get through that area. That's Bethlehem today. I was talking to this guy yesterday. Like, what would King David think about that? How's King David's hometown?
Be ashamed.
What in the world is happening? And then, okay, so we're talking about Christians. The Christians of Bethlehem are fleeing because of this persecution. I don't know if you guys know this. We just did that big report on Taibe, the last standing only Christian town. Christian town. Well, it is like a Christian, whatever, Catholic, something or another. It's all Christian. It's the last one that way. You know what's happening there right now?
What's happening?
They are being at the brunt of Islamist attacked in fury right now. I just had an interview with the priest himself there just a few weeks ago, and he looked at me, and his chief of staff guy that was next to him there looked at me and said, the settlers are the big problem. And I said, you don't see these jihadis outside your door? Is that not your problem to you? I just saw a video, and they were in mass, Arabs attacking the village now.
How do you explain then that he would say that the settlers are the problem?
Is it fear? Is he afraid that if he speaks against
I have
the
no
jihad,
idea what's going on there. But all I know is the settlers are never attacking. I was looking at him straight in the face. I'm like, you're telling me they're attacking you? Their cows are out. They got out of the fence and they're running around your village, and that's an attack.
Same propaganda that the Muslim mayor of Tur Messiah told us.
Yeah, that's
on
right.
camera as well. It's like there honestly seemed to be no difference between the Christian priest of Taipei and the Muslim mayor of Tur Messiah, and in their ideology, in their rhetoric, the propaganda, the brainwashing, the education they receive, their political views.
But I'm seeing something inside now. They're scared to death, not the settlers. They're playing a game of survival.
And it doesn't like they tried to side with the jihadists, and it didn't save them in the end.
They're being attacked, and we have to play this video. I mean, we'll put it up right here. These guys, this is a big attack. You hear gunfire in the background. Pow, 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 shooting.
Let's see the video right now.
Yeah, we'll play it. So this is the reality in the streets. The world is saying one thing, but it is so exactly opposite. The Christians here, the Christians wherever they are not saying the truth out of fear for their own lives. They will look at me, an honest to goodness Westerner that's coming in to try to tell the story. They're going to look at me and lie through their teeth because they're scared to death of what's going on next door. And they're scared of what you just saw.
Well, is it really that, or is it a mixture between that and this priest being a replacement theologist of the same ilk as that nun and Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens? So he wants to believe that, and it also converges with his own interest of being terrified of speaking against the jihad.
Well, there's no doubt if you go back and watch the interview with him that he hates Jews more than he hates Hamas, even at his own life, right? He knows the reality of what's going on. Jews are not, there's no literal danger to their lives from any Jew, no matter where they are. That doesn't exist. The real danger is from the jihadis. His faith, on the other hand, is so anti-Israel that it allows him to talk ill against Israel. It's hand in hand. But this was just a huge wake-up call that I have to mention on the show.
Well, to me, it seems like there's just a spiritual battle raging in the land. And it's between the Catholics that want to replace us, the Muslims that want to replace us. Like, they're both a replacement theology in their core. And the only answer to that is sovereignty in the land of Israel.
You're right.
Where God promised the land to a people, and his chosen people are in the chosen land. That just puts an end to the entire conversation. So that's what needs to be done.
I think sovereignty would be an external manifestation of the deeper answer to that, which is the story I just brought up that we just sort of glossed over about these first graders.
Yeah, can I?
Right, that's what it's about. Yechezkel says, I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit within you. I will put my spirit within you and cause you to walk in my statutes and keep my ordinances. He's speaking about the days of redemption. The final days when we return to the land, he'll put a new spirit within us that will be through the children. The prophet Malachi says, he will turn the hearts of the fathers to the children and the hearts of the children to the fathers. But it will start with the children.
Can
and
I read you please. The numbers on this? Because I was really inspired by this article in the Times of Israel. For the first time in Israel's history this year, thousands more children, I believe it's like 6,000 more children, will begin first grade in religious Jewish schools than in secular ones, according to data from the Education Ministry. And if you dive into the article, there's been a steady trend moving this way. Those attending Arab school has been slowly declining. Secular schools slowly declining. Religious Jewish schools, the attendance in first grade and in the schools has been slowly climbing. You have the total number of children enrolled in Orthodox schools, 72,000. That's 6,000 more. And another factor is that there's like 80,000 Israelis that left Israel after October 7th, and the majority of them have not returned, but it was mostly non-Jewish or non-religious Israelis. And you have, at the same time, you have wave of Aliyah, you have a lot of religious Jews. So exactly what you're saying is happening, is you have basically, these numbers are showing, and also like the stories of secular Israelis turning to God, beginning to keep the Torah, beginning to, observe Shabbat, all these things, like the stories right after October 7th are so inspiring. The nation turning to God.
I find that
turning
many
to the
secular
Bible.
Israelis lean in, call themselves secular,
Right.
but when you really dig in, they're totally not. But why do they do that? Because they're contrasting themselves with the ultra-Orthodox and saying, well, if that's religious, then I'm secular. But really, they're people of tremendous faith, tremendous self-sacrifice. They keep the Sabbath to one degree or another. They keep Yom Kippur. They circumcise their children. They're very deeply identifying and proud, God-fearing Jews, and they call themselves secular.
Which I think is important for people watching or listening. It's the opposite of what most people are used to in Christianity or in America. Because people may be like, 70,000 people that are religious going to school. What does that even mean? Who wants to be religious? Like exactly what you're saying. It's the opposite. Most people in America, if they say they're Christian, a lot of people, it means they go to church on Easter and Christmas or whatever. And that's like the limit of their religious observance. But it's exactly the opposite here. People that call themselves secular are way more observant of the Bible and turn to God than they would, admit. And it's the opposite in Christianity. People say, I'm a Christian because my father was a Christian or my grandfather was a Christian or whatever.
And I say the words.
Never read the Bible in my life. I've been to church like twice, I think, in my entire life. But no, it's the exact opposite here. These numbers don't even represent the number of people who are actually turning to God.
Yeah, those numbers are the first graders. Meaning, if you look at like the next generation of leadership, it really is the soldiers of Israel right now.
That's right.
They're after high school, they're young men. And the soldiers of Israel have done the exact opposite of what Western secularism declares. iPhone, iPads, it's all about them. And every single soldier of Israel has spoken with their lives, saying, I'm ready to give of myself, to give of my life for my brother, to give my life for my country. And that next line of leadership is about to rise up in Israel. And the next line after them, these first graders, Israel is going through a transformation that's going to change the world.
I don't know if you have this in America. On the first day of kindergarten, first grade, do you guys take pictures of your kids and post it all over social media?
I'm sure that I think so. Yeah.
It's something that's done in Israel also. Look at this picture. This is a picture.
I was going to bring this up. Yeah.
Yeah. Look at this on the screen, right? So the girl all the way to the right says Gan Trum Chova. She's in preschool, right? He's in daycare. The little boy is holding up what he's going into. And then the father is holding up saying Sevev Arba, his fourth time getting called up to reserve duty. That's hundreds of days away from his family in Gaza, putting his life on the line. When you look at this generation, I'm like humbled. I'm humbled by the greatness of this generation. I remember being nervous because this is the TikTok generation. Yeah. This is the distracted generation. This is the soft generation, not in the land of Israel. These are lions. These are lions. And so that's why I said the answer is not sovereignty. Sovereignty is a manifestation of the deeper return. And that's really the answer. The return to putting our faith in God, not just ritually and through observance and commandments, but through actual faith on a policy level, to put our faith in him and do what is right and what is just and what is true, and not what the world says and do the pragmatic thing of compromising and settling for the scraps.
Well, those two things go hand in hand. I mean, the fact that we're now saying no to a Palestinian state and yes to the direction of sovereignty is a manifestation that Israel is becoming spiritually stronger.
Right.
I think back to the past, and I think when Mark Twain visited the land of Israel, 1867, he didn't realize at that moment what he was actually doing. I don't believe he didn't realize what he was as he was scribing down. These days he would be on a podcast talking about it. Let's modernize the situation. As we're having our conversation, I just realized it seems like this conversation is much more biblical, and we're kind of awake to it. We see it a little bit, but Jeremy, I just feel like we just had a conversation that the prophets of the old would be like, it's happening. It's happening. Like we're living in the middle of like exactly what was written in the words you're talking about. We just painted the picture of what the global stage looks like. It's honestly would be scary to someone that didn't believe in God. We're at a really serious world war kind of moment where it's who knows what tomorrow will hold, what will fall. And at the same time in Israel, we're seeing something that's absolutely tremendous. We're seeing Israel rise, and that Torah of Israel beginning to shine, not just Israel's innovative creations and the Torah of Israel is beginning to shine, meaning the people of Israel are not just being smart. They're believing in God. It's a new transformation that you're talking about. Talk more about, as we're wrapping up, what is that to you? What is that to the world? What are, in a Torah kind of rabbi ending, as all of this we've talked about?
Yeah, this week's Torah portion, it actually tells us the command to erase Amalek from under the sky. And what is the weapon? How do we do it?
Yeah.
And it actually says, Zachor et asher asa lecha Amalek. Remember what Amalek did to you. So our ability to remember is the weapon that we use to destroy evil. And so secularism is just defined by me in the moment. That's what I have. What's right now? That's why Europe is committing suicide. They're not thinking about the next generation because they're not having children. What's good for me right now? Oh, I need some workers. Okay, well, let's immigrate the jihad into Belgium. And now Belgium is lost. But what we're saying is the way to defeat evil is to remember who you are, remember where you come from, to dig deep into biblical history. So when you know where you come from, then you know where you're going. And you know that right now we're at the cusp of redemption. And that really is the ultimate defeat of Amalek. To know who we are, to know where we come from, and to know where we're going.
You know, I hear so many Jews saying we need to put more money into hasbara, into advocacy, into making the argument for Israel. We're just not doing it right. But really, the first verse of the Bible, Bereshit bara, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And the greatest commentator, Rashi, says, when the nations come against you, why does the Bible begin with the first verse and not the first commandment? Because in the future, when the nations come against you and say, the land of Israel doesn't belong to you, you are to respond. Do you know what he says? You are to respond and say, God created the entire world and he gave the land of Israel to us. He gave the land of Israel to whom he pleases. That is the narrative. There is a God. It needs to come back to God. We don't need millions or hundreds of thousands of dollars or even $1 in advocacy. All we need to do is recognize that in our heart, and our who we are as a result of internalizing that truth is so much louder than anything we can say or preach. We just need to be that living embodiment of God's word.
Or, there are some people that we need, we only have one guy behind the camera. So if anybody wanted to give like $1 or something, we would take it to help this podcast keep going. But,
if somebody did want to give, this would be a good place to do that.
We don't make money off this show, guys. Ari and Jeremy drive up here every single week of their own accord. 5 hours of driving or something like that.
You got to drive with this guy.
Out of the
those
goodness
conversations
of their
look like. But I do want to just say
I'm
one
kidding.
thing. You know the story of the two fish in the water, and one says to the other, do you believe in water? And the other says, I don't know. Well, my grandfather believed in water. And they're immersed in water.
Right.
Sometimes I feel like here in the land of Israel, we are so immersed in the living embodiment of the prophecies that are so overwhelming that sometimes we don't even see what's right in front of our face. We wake up in the morning in Judea, in the hills in which Amos had his prophecy, where he said, V'shavti, I will return the exiles of my people, and they will rebuild desolate cities, and they'll plant vineyards and drink their wine. They will plant gardens and eat their fruit, and I will plant them upon their land, and they'll never be uprooted again. Everything of those words is literally happening right in front of us, through us, and we're immersed in it. And it's sometimes so impossible. You guys are a living embodiment of prophecy. What is Hayovel's essential prophecy that inspired the whole movement?
Right. Coming back to the land, seeing the Jews come back to the land and plant the vines again. Like to see this.
And foreigners and strangers coming and being a part. Isaiah talks about it. Jeremiah, Ezekiel, it's just.
And we're seeing
the honor of our lifetime. The honor of our lifetime to be here. And we had a group leave day before yesterday. Yeah. We have another group coming right now. All foreigners, Christians who believe in the Bible. We have another group coming in November, which I'm supposed to remind you guys, November 17th through 25th, we have a Heartland Experience program. You guys going to be in Israel mid-November?
Well, where else would they be?
So.
Well, then
never leaving again.
You guys get to meet Ari and Jeremy while you're here. So that should be reason enough to come join the trip. But we'll have the link down for that in the description below. That's how you can best support what we do at the Israel Guys, is come to Israel on one of our programs. And if you want to support Ari and Jeremy, you can go to thelandofisrael.com, join the Land of Israel Fellowship.
Luke, I'm going to add something to that trips is that those trips fill up and they're capped. So people should join and be a part of that
even in wartime,
quickly.
We try not to cancel trips. We're like the one organization in Israel that runs trips. Even we've canceled a few, but that's like when there's like missiles like raining overhead and things like that. So anyways,
when the airport's closed, it's hard to bring people in.
It's true. Yeah. You got to come over on a boat.
Oh, we've had plenty of volunteers see missiles literally just happened.
Yeah. You're like, oh, there's the Houthis again.
Right.
Anyways, guys, there's predictions. You can make some of your own predictions if you want to get in the comment section and let us know How many nations are going to vote for a Palestinian state this week or next week? Is Israel going to declare sovereignty? Who's going to join the whatever we're calling the Eastern Axis over there? So anyways, let us know what you think. And make sure to subscribe. Make sure to follow along. We're here every single week. As always, stop listening to the lies and propaganda and connect with the truth of what's happening in Israel. We'll be back very soon here at the Israel Guys.